One, two, three, four.
Hello, you're listening to the SKYLIT Books podcast series. We are a general interest independent bookstore located in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles, California. This year, because of the coronavirus pandemic, we've had to close our store and cancel in-person events. But SKYLIT is your neighborhood bookstore, and we are finding ways to create community even while we're far apart. In the coming weeks, we'll be putting out lots of new audio content to help you discover new books, connect with authors, and check in with your favorite booksellers. To learn more about how you can help keep SKYLIT alive, please visit our website at skylitbooks.com or check out our social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram. You can subscribe to the podcast on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Thank you for listening and enjoy.
Hello, my beautiful listeners, and welcome to SKYLIT. This is the SKYLIT's Books podcast, and I'm your host, Lance Morgan. Today, I'm super excited to be welcoming my new friend, Amy Shira Teitel, to read from her new book, Fighting for Space. And then we'll be in conversation, which will be so much fun. Before I introduce her, I just want to remind you that SKYLIT Books right now offers curbside pickup and online ordering on our website, which is www.skylitbooks.com. And when we're open for browsing, hopefully soon, remember to still keep on socially distancing yourself from others and to bring a mask to the store and enjoy. Today we have Amy Shira Teitel, who is a spaceflight historian, author, and public speaker who, much like her subjects, is one of the few academically trained young women in her field. She earned a bachelor's degree with combined honors in history of science and technology and classics, as well as a master's in sciences and technology studies before leaving academia for a popular science writing. She has since written for more than 24 websites, including the BBC and Time Magazine Online, earned a Group Achievement Award from NASA as a part of the New Horizons mission to Pluto team, and appears frequently as an expert interviewee in a number of TV shows and documentaries. She also maintains her blog, Vintage Space, and its companion YouTube channel. Welcome, Amy. I'm so excited and happy to have you here today.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. It's so exciting. I just before you go into reading, I just want to say just reading through all your achievements in your bio. You're the coolest person.
Well, thank you. I do. My favorite thing about those quick little bios is it makes you sound really awesome in like 4 sentences.
And I think it sounds like that mostly because you are. I'm just going to say I think you are. All right. So you have a reading for us today?
I do. And I'm going to give a little bit of context around these two passages just to kind of give you and give the listeners a little bit of a sense of kind of where we are. So Fighting for Space is a dual biography of two female pilots and kind of how they navigated the world as America transitioned from aviation into spaceflight. And our main character is Jerrie Cochran, who I am a little bit obsessed with. And she has such a fascinating backstory that I won't get into the details of, but all you need to know before we get into this part is she was born Bessie Pittman. All right. And this is happening in the late 1920s. All right. In the span of a decade, Bessie had been married and divorced, welcomed a son, and then buried him. She had buried her father and her brother. Her sisters and beloved brother Joseph were all raising their own families, and the only family Bessie had left was her mother, with whom she continued to clash. Defuniak Springs in Florida held nothing but painful memories for Bessie. She decided the time had come to make a clean break. One midsummer day in 1929, 23-year-old Bessie arrived at the train station in Pensacola. Her worldly possessions were packed into suitcases, and her life savings was tucked away in her pocketbook, including the money she'd gained from selling her Ford Model T. She bought a ticket and boarded a train heading north. Watching the countryside stream past the window, she decided to reinvent her past. She would tell people that she was an orphan, that the Pittmans had taken her in but never really cared for her. This would explain her lack of family ties. She would never admit to knowing her biological family and would instead tell people that her foster parents, Molly and Ira, had been so poor and unloving that she had been forced to leave the house at 11 years old to find work. She also decided to never tell anyone about her marriage or her son, though she couldn't bear to erase Robert Jr. entirely. He was her happiest memory. She needed to keep him with her somehow, so decided to keep the only thing left that they had shared, a name. She would remain a Cochran to keep her little boy alive in her heart, though she would tell people she'd picked the surname at random, running her finger through a phone book. As the train sped further north, Bessie Pittman faded into obscurity. When she arrived in New York City days later, she retained Bessie's skill as a hairdresser and nurse, her obsession with cleanliness, and her moxie, but nothing else. No one would ever know Bessie Pittman, she decided, but the world would absolutely know Miss Jacqueline Cochran. So from there, we get into a lot of Jackie's life. Jackie the world did know her name for sure. She became one of the most decorated, most successful pilots of the 20th century. And as we follow her story along, we also meet our other main character, Jerrie Cobb. Now, Jerrie, 25 years Jackie's junior, was the first woman the woman who, I should say, she was in the right place at the right time to take the same medical tests that the Mercury astronauts took in the late 1950s that qualified them for spaceflight. And here's where the story kind of gets into the meat of the issue of women in space, because the media heard about Jerrie taking medical tests and ran with the story. I equate it to the way Twitter can run with something on a dime. And because Jackie was the foremost pilot, one of the foremost pilots in the world at the time, she was constantly being asked to comment on it. So the two women ended up in this battle to control the narrative of a non-existent female spaceflight program that played out in the media. So we're going to pick this up with one more passage in the fall of 1961. So we're quite a bit further in the future. By fall, NASA decided that the time for extreme caution was over. Operations and planning shifted to preparing the larger Atlas rocket that could put the Mercury spacecraft into orbit for manned flights. And John Glenn, after serving as backup twice, was finally prime pilot. He felt like he'd drawn the first orbital mission by chance more than anything else, but he didn't care. John was going to be the first American to orbit the Earth. NASA wanted to launch one final orbital mission with a primate on board before announcing John's new assignment. Without a new astronaut to write about, journalists returned to the story of the female astronaut hopefuls. Jerrie's was, of course, a familiar face, but after Marion Dietrich's article appeared in the September issue of McCall's, she and her twin sister Jan were added to the public's consciousness. Alongside articles about decorating children's rooms and the dangers of subsidizing marriages, the story of the twins learning to fly together and details about Marion's time in Albuquerque appeared under the headline, "First Woman into Space." Across the board, headlines and reports inflated the program, turning it from a medical endeavor into an actual female spaceflight program. Though the world didn't know the names of the Lovelace women, they were obliquely dubbed the Astronauts and described as a team of women pilots training for spaceflights. Articles named Randy Lovelace among the men behind the program and speculated wildly that the first women to fly would be flat-chested, since it would simplify finding a spacesuit that fit. The real female pilots, meanwhile, 11 of them in all shapes and sizes, were quietly preparing to travel to Florida. Their expectations varied, some hoping their time would yield good data, and others hoping to join the space program. Jerrie, the 12th member of the group and their self-appointed spokeswoman, hoped their success would fast-track her own flight into space. From there, we do follow the rest of the story about what happened, but I won't spoil it.
No, I was just in. This is, oh my God, such cool information. Thank you for sharing that wonderful reading. So to start off our conversation, I just want to ask you about you. What are you doing? Like, we're all in this pandemic right now, right? I mean, you've heard of it, right? Just making sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's big news now. It's big news. It's
Yeah, it's been interesting, right?
Interesting. It's been an interesting time. What have you been doing to like just to like center yourself? Like what has been like calming you in like media, or media like as in film, television, books, music, whatever?
The weirdest thing about this pandemic for me, I mean, I've been working from home and self-employed for over a decade. So my daily life is very unchanged. It's actually been really strange that in this kind of the initial seasoning period where everyone started working from home, which was like right when the hardcover of the book came out. So it became this, like, I was trying to get people to respond to emails because we're trying to promote this thing. And everyone else who's never worked from home is like, everything is slow, everything's delayed. And I'm like, guys, you can still respond to an email. I do this every day. So in a weird way, it's like my own little bubble has remained very the same, which has been kind of nice. I just miss, seeing other people and going outside. Right. But yeah, no, I've been kind of, like you said, finding a lot of things to do online to kind of find comfort, not really even comfort, but find company. Been doing a lot more reading, which has been really fun, and turning to, a lot more video games, because that's kind of the one thing, like, I think even no matter what you do, I think you need something that allows your brain to rest. I know for me, writing about aviation in space, like it gets heavy. So I want something that allows my brain to totally rest and can reset for the next day.
Right.
Video games have become a huge part of that. Christmas, I completely redid my Animal Crossing island. So
oh my God.
yeah, it was a fun endeavor, but I felt rested. Considering I couldn't go anywhere, couldn't reset with like a new, vista out the window, it felt nice to just spend some time. It feels like spending some time elsewhere, but yeah, a lot of that. I haven't really been doing movies or TV as much, strangely.
Okay. See, you're the first person who's like, everyone I think has been doing the opposite, where they've been going to movies and TVs and they're just like,
yeah,
wow, I've been finding, you're the first person I'm like, books. And I love that. Like books are, I'm glad that books are giving you that comfort right now. Any particular titles that have been like, that just like really like, was just like something that you're like, wow, this was exactly what I needed right now?
Oh, what have I even been reading? I've taken on a little side quest recently. So I think the one thing that bio didn't mention is I'm actually Canadian. I'm from Canada. I've been living in the US for 10 years. And as a Canadian living in the US, working in American history and seeing what is happening in current day America, I have a lot of questions, a lot. So I'm doing a deep dive into US history right now, which is coming from an academic background in history has been really interesting to kind of approach it like that and really understand like what America. So I've been doing a lot of reading of looking at pre-revolutionary history to understand the roots of everything that has kind of been the foundation of like what's allowed things to happen over the last 200 years. So I've been doing a lot of that, which is not the most restful reading, but it's I like taking on a little side project like that. I'm trying to think of what else I've read currently. I think the last book I read my mom gave me was, I can't remember the author's name, which is terrible, but Amy and Isabel, which is a book written in the 90s. It's a coming of age story about a mother and a daughter in a small town. I think it takes place in the late 60s. There's some context clues that make it late 60s, but just kind of an interesting study of a mother-daughter relationship that my mom read in a book group, actually. So she sent it to me because she thought I might have an appreciation of it now that I'm her adult daughter, not 16, which is the age of the daughter named Amy in the book. So that's the last one I read. Currently also picking at Jerry Seinfeld's Is This Anything, which is just hilarious.
No, that sounds so much fun. That I'm glad you're getting all these just reading done. I feel like the big part of everyone's stress in the pandemic is like, I can't focus on books right now, but like you.
Yeah, and I weirdly have that with TV. I feel like there's so much going on. I don't have the emotional energy to get into a new set of characters in a TV show. For what, I don't even know what that says about how my brain works, that like somehow digging into the like deep American history feels more comfortable.
I think you have like a better brain than the rest of us is what I'm gonna say. Like I think your brain is just like more evolved.
I will never say there's no better, just different.
Different in like a special, unique, and needed way. Like your brain is just like needed right now. Someone needs to like carry on the reading right now.
Yeah, I know. And I think I'm a writers are readers for the most part too. Like I really like how much I've had this fight with people a lot, actually, books versus movies, and people are like, well, why would I read the book when I can just watch the movie in an hour and a half? And I'm like, why would you watch an hour and a half when you could get sucked into a story for a week? I like that escape. So I think that's why I kind of gravitate to books and yeah.
No, I get that. And that's like, yeah, I really do think that's right. Writers are readers. And in the most like insane sometimes way we are. But no, that's great. I love that. What a great answer. So your book is just so special, so special. And so like, it just seems so needed right now. And like, where I feel like a lot of the next steps in American history or in our American history has to be looking at our past and like the way that we like kind of incorrectly told the past. And I feel like you've done such a special job in your book in like correcting like a lot of injustices done to these women by media and like just like I hate to say it. Oh, I hate to say it, but I have to. In like fake news, like it's fake news. I hate to say it, but like,
Yeah.
it's. Please, could you tell me about like the experience like before writing it, but just being attracted to this story?
Yeah, because I think one of the reasons, there's a few things that I really found very personally satisfying in writing this book.
Mm.
And it all kind of started because there's the story that you may have heard and some people may have heard because it gets picked up and tossed around the media every few years of the Mercury 13, which the story goes is a group of women who were qualified to fly in space in the 1960s, but were kept out on account of their gender. And the more I read about the story, the more I'm like, this doesn't add up because I've done a lot of work in NASA's history. It doesn't strike me as this is the only thing that was at play in this story. And especially because the story always involves this villain called Jackie Cochran, who is basically like Maleficent. Like she comes down, she's always in the story. It's like, because the issue of women astronauts comes to a head with a congressional subcommittee hearing in 1962. And this story always comes up with this where like the women are arguing their scientific right to be in the cockpit and the astronauts are like, no, we only want men. And then Jackie comes down from her castle and like talks about how women are not ready to be in the cockpit and then like goes home to hang out with her pet raven. Like she's just this unexplored villainous character. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense because why is the foremost woman pilot doing this? There has to be more at play. So that's why like when I started researching for this story, I started looking at her because I felt like there was something that the record needed to be set straight a little bit. And that's when I started looking at like the story is actually Jackie's story because she knew everybody. like Eisenhower wrote his memoirs at her house. She saved LBJ's life one day. She was close personal friends with Randy Lovelace, who did the medical testing of the astronauts. So like that's a link that no one had ever really discussed. Chuck Yeager taught her how to fly through the sound barrier. Like all this, she's really this interesting. I call her like real Forrest Gump because she's everywhere, but no one talks about her because she has no children. She left no legacy. She's also married to one of the 10 richest people in the country at the time in the 30s, which is just like, yeah, okay.
I think
You knew multiple presidents. Like
we need to go to the film studio with this like real Forrest Gump. So we're like, we got this.
Yeah, right.
Like I'm like right now. I'm like real Forrest Gump. All right, locked in there.
It's the best way to describe how prevalent she was. So when you start looking at it, you realize that okay, so she learned to fly as an adult, Jackie did. And she was immediately like, she learned to fly in 1932 as a 26-year-old. By the end of the decade, she was winning awards. She was on, in national aviation committees. She led the Women's Air Force Service pilots in the Second World War. And her whole thing, she kind of understood through all of that, how to play the game. Because as a woman in the 1930s and 1940s, you had to play the game that was male dominant to be able to work your way in. And Jerrie comes along and is raised in a different era. By the time Jerrie learned to fly towards the end of the Second World War, women were pilots, women were in factories because of the whole Rosie the Riveter thing. And then, women of Jerrie's generation who then, grew up with that and then that narrative was flipped by the government saying, you know, women take care of your men at home, and that whole like get back in the kitchen narrative that was as much propaganda as the Rosie the Riveter, you know, grew up fighting against that and said, well, I was never told I had these limitations, so let me in. Jackie knew you can't do that. So it really ends up being this whole thing of like, okay, they're both fighting for the same goal, which is women to have the ability to fly in space. Jackie understood that you can't just go in and force it, and Jerrie thought she could. And none of the stories ever talk about why NASA picked test pilots, which for me was always like, it made sense. It maybe retrospectively wasn't the right decision, but when you think about it, everything in space is trying to kill you. And everything in space was unknown in 1959. So what possible close job do you have on Earth that is as close as possible to be an astronaut? It's a test pilot. Things go really fast. Things are experimental. You have to make lightning fast decisions. You know how to not die in the air. And of all of those people, you want the most medically fit because they're going to die the least in space, basically. Right. So, you know, people are like, oh, NASA just, you know, deselected women. It's like, no, NASA deselected 99.99% of the population. 110 people met the base requirements. And that was because they had no idea what was happening. And the idea of military guys who would follow orders made a ton of sense. And it just so happened at the time that military test pilot schools were only open to men. Right. So, you know, people making this oversimplified narrative of, oh, NASA didn't want women. It's like, no, it's actually like these really deep decisions that became ingrained in the agency for a few years. Up until the mid 60s, actually, NASA started to look at women, and then didn't for very other reasons. Right. But so I wanted to set the record straight on the story because I'm kind of sick of this narrative that kind of makes, you know, women couldn't fly in space because of womanness. It's like, no, women are just people. We're all just people. Sometimes you just don't have the qualifications, and that's okay. And these guys just didn't have the qualifications, and that's okay. What they did as women and as pilots is amazing. So let's also look at that. So I wanted to kind of bring to light what they actually accomplished in their own careers, which is all very stunning because they're fighting against so many odds in every stance, but put it within the real context of history. So there's a lot of things happening in this book.
No, that's like an amazing like reason, I think, to be compelled to write a book, to like, yeah, just like really like feel, to give them justice in a way. In your book too, you talk about like kind of the more broader situational things going on. Like you talk about like President Lyndon B. Johnson, and how like, right, that I said the right president, right?
Yes.
Yes, I did it. I'm like, I don't think it's just victorious. Yes. But like how like the depression was like affecting it, and like just what NASA like was like going through at that time, and like the news outlets, why they kind of like shaped the story this way. Was there anything in that like surprised you to find out about, like, that just like you didn't see coming?
Yeah, I think there were elements that when I started researching, I didn't know would come into play. So you know, the John Glenn is another major figure in the book because he's kind of the figurehead representing the male test pilots who have the opportunities. And there's also the presidential strain, like you said, because the president tells NASA what to do. Lyndon Johnson not only helped get NASA actually to become an organization when he was Senate Majority Leader, but then also was kind of the liaison between Kennedy and NASA before Kennedy's assassination. So, you know, all these figures I knew had to be in there, but then finding out that Jackie and LBJ are very close friends and that she had an influence over him, that I didn't realize was going to be so important, but also understanding. I sort of got in the weeds a little bit on LBJ just to you know, in the interest of being a good historian and trying to flesh out that little narrative, so it's not just like, and he was in the office that day, you know. To find out about his just like being so over all of the stuff, like that he just was not even, like, he didn't want to run again. If Kennedy was going to go up for re-election, LBJ was taking himself off the ticket. That is such an expression of like malaise with the job that, like, of course he's sort of like, okay, can you just get, you get the sense that when Jerrie Cobb comes to him and asks him to direct NASA to allow her to fly, you kind of understand why he's like, I am sick of dealing with this. And you have these letters, because I went to the LBJ library in Austin, and you have these letters, and he and his aide George Reedy would write notes, and those are preserved. And you can see that he just like wrote, just file it. Like he's not even giving it thought. He's just like, I'm sick of it.
Mhm.
And you don't just blow stuff off because you don't care. You blow stuff off because like, I have bigger issues than this one woman who wants to fly. And then it sort of reinforces the idea that maybe her approach wasn't necessarily the right. I mean,
Right.
her taking it on is incredibly valiant. You have to admire how strong she fought, but you understand both sides of that, so it was all that stuff. I didn't realize it would all come into play. The
Mhm.
emotional side of all of the people, I thought was an interesting thing to discover. And finding all the letters, oh my God, was just, yeah. Jackie was a pack rat. Like,
Yeah.
saved everything, and everything is in the Eisenhower Library.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. The letters, the notes, the handwritten things that I just like in margins of papers. And I'm like, oh, you wrote that as a note. It's just like, I'm having so much fun.
You say this, and I just imagine you in like and this is just like because I think you're the coolest, of course, but like I imagine you like in a National Treasure way, like sneaking into the library to read these secret letters, and then like finding like a little secret hatch to like find like the missing letter that no one like that just sounds so cool just because like
It sounds so cool. It's so funny because, like, okay, National Treasure is like my favorite guilty pleasure movie. Like, let's be honest, it's a
it's a great
terrible movie, but it's also the funnest movie.
I will
I
I will
love when
always
people
say I haven't seen it in years, actually. And now that I'm like, I need to rewatch it. I need to rewatch both of them, one and two.
Oh no. Yeah. The second one's not as fun, but it's still
No.
good. But oh my God, I do love that movie. And I love when people are like, it sounds like National Treasure. I'm like, it's not. Because it's literally just sitting there sifting through very well organized files and like
Mhm.
Presidential Library, National Archives. There's a camera over every desk to make sure you're not damaging anything, you're not stealing anything, and
Right.
respecting archives and
Right.
respecting history, of course. And but like when you find those links, when you find those little bits and pieces, it feels like National Treasure. Like it's that exciting for a researcher to find that. It really is. Like it's not a bad analogy. It doesn't look as
Right.
cool, but it feels as cool.
No, like I like now you're making me like think, should I be a researcher? Should I go to I want that feeling of just like feeling like Nicolas Cage stealing that Declaration of Independence. Yeah, no, that's
but also I do not advocate stealing the Declaration
no,
of Independence. Let's be clear.
The SKYLIT podcast does not approve of stealing the Declaration of Independence in any way. We just think that the movie is cool.
The movie
National Treasure is a cool movie.
No.
My next question for you is more from my own perspective. So I have an MFA in writing, which is short to say that I have no science background. I have nothing. Like the last science class I took was like chemistry for liberal arts students, which is like just like they're like, oh, they're not, they don't know science. Let's be easy on them. But I've always been like interested in anything like space related or all these, because like I feel like in the past, maybe, I mean, forever we've had great space movies, but like in the past like 10 years, we've gotten really cool space movies that are not just like the 2001 A Space Odyssey, but like the like actual science and like the work put into like actually like going into space, the people who are like actually doing the math, the science, the drawings on the whiteboard that I don't understand. Actually, I do have a math degree, so like I probably should understand it, but I don't. It all went away the second I got that degree. Weirdly. But like, how would you, for a person who like wants to like know more about this but doesn't have that background, is there like, how would you tell them to like get into it? What's a great like resources for them to try and
get into learning about it, you mean?
Learning about it, or just like in a casual, just like in a the same way like you want to learn about like anything else,
I mean, I would definitely check out my YouTube channel. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I'm not, but I am.
Please plug your YouTube channel for us.
I think so. I always say, because like my background is both my degrees are actually arts degrees, like they're history degrees. It's just that I happened to do, just because I've been obsessed with space since I was a kid, since I was 7, that like, history that's made of science allows you to talk about science, but in English. And I always joke that like, I've been able to have a career as a science communicator because scientists and engineers don't necessarily speak English. So I just translate what they do and make it accessible. So in terms of learning about this stuff, there are some really good science communicators out there who are experts at translating this really intense, really detailed science stuff into everyday language. Because at the end of the day, and it totally makes sense. An expert who's like, I don't know, wrapped up in the weeds of like underwater geologic formations, random thing, is not going to be able to explain that to a grade school kid. And grade school for the average person is probably where their science understanding is if you don't work in it, because how much do you remember? You just said you have a math degree and don't remember it. So which makes sense. I mean, I think there's just a lot of really good people out there who, and I like to think I do an okay job at communicating and kind of breaking this stuff down in casual language that makes it, accessible, because at the end of the day, I mean, scientists love sharing their work. People love sharing the excitement of science. Even though I don't work in science, I love getting people excited about this stuff, even just for a minute, even if just for 1 minute, you're like, oh, I had no idea that the astronauts, when they went to the moon, had to fly a figure-8 path. Oh, I had no idea that this is the first time they had retractable landing gear. Cause like if you've been on a plane, the wheels fold up, you don't think about when that started. So it's just about finding those people who are good at it and who are passionate about it. My tip, if you're ever looking to sort of like get into SciComm, my way is always take what you love and try to explain it to your drunk friend, because your drunk friend has the attention span of a child for about 2 minutes. If you can't get them hooked in those 2 minutes, you got to try again.
No, the way that you're talking about it, and especially like translating for scientists, to bring it back to movies, because that's how my brain thinks. I imagine it was like Amy Adams in Arrival, when you're just like translating these, like in the way the scientists are like, because that's, and like that's just so important, because we need like more. It's just the way. I feel like that's so important to translate, because I don't understand science, but if someone tells me.
Yeah, it's all so cool. It's just a matter of making sure it's language that you understand. Like that's what I did when I was with the New Horizons team, just for the month of Encounter, just for that 1 month we were close. And I did a video series called Pluto in a Minute. And I broke down one interesting thing about the mission in roughly a minute every day. And it was so cool because I did one on the trajectory of the spacecraft, because it's really hard to get to Pluto in the first place, but also get to Pluto between some of the moons. And when you're doing that, it took 9 years, and you can't just go straight to Pluto, right? Pluto's orbiting. You have to aim to where it's going to be. But if your rocket's not powerful enough, you need more velocity. So you have to swing by other planets to pick up some of that speed, which, people talk about it like, oh yeah, we did a Jupiter flyby. Okay, well, we need to explain that for the average person, because what the hell does that mean? So I got to sit down. I can't remember her name, which is just terrible because I use this as an example all the time, but I got to sit down with the woman who designed the trajectory, and she was so lovely and so cool. And I have enough of an understanding about this stuff, and she's the expert who planned it, that between the two of us, I was able to break it down simply enough that she signed off on like, yes, it's correct, and get it out there and share it with, I don't know how many people watch that video, but 100,000 people or whatever learned a little bit about the challenge of getting to Pluto. And I'm like, that's very cool that I was able to translate this super intense thing in about a minute to people who don't even know what a flyby is. And it's so satisfying. It's so exciting for me to be able to help people just like be like, this is cool. And I can get it. I don't need to be a math person.
No, now that you've told me this, I have no pressure to do it, but do you have any of that 1 minute, like those 1 minute facts that you would love to share right now on the podcast that like, I mean, just the coolest one that you can think, or anything that like excites you, or you're just like, the people need to know this. I would love to hear, but no pressure.
I'm trying to think, and there's so many. So let me just talk for a second, think, so I'm not just staring at the window alone. I think one of the like 1 minute facts, and I give this to people a lot, is because so this is so hard to do in audio only because I use my hands, but I talk a lot. So if you're listening, I'm gesticulating wildly. So the Apollo lunar landing missions, The Apollo lunar landing missions, people always wonder why they landed with one spacecraft and keeping the other one in orbit, because you always have the story of like, Mike Collins is the loneliest man on Apollo 11, taking that picture of the Earth with the lunar module, and it's everybody but him and this whole thing. People are always like, why did they do that? And I love it because the very simple explanation is, all right, if you have a rocket stack, and I'm holding a pen up, if you have a rocket stack, your entire rocket is just the fuel to get there, and the tip of it is your payload. You need all that energy to get off the Earth, so you have to make it lighter. So if you think about the Apollo missions, you're basically it's like you think about like your car, and as you're running out of gas, you throw stuff out of the car to lighten the load as you go, so you can get every last bit out of that tank of gas. So you're at that point, you're throwing out the seats, you're throwing off the doors. That's basically what the Apollo missions did. They got rid of the sections as they went along. So the whole rocket left. They left this really heavy fuel tank in orbit. But then they didn't even bring the lunar landing spacecraft back. They kicked that out off into space, and they kicked the gas tank off at the end to only come back with the one thing they needed. So when you look at how modular the landing profile of that mission was, it becomes an interesting study. It wasn't about, it had nothing to do with the easiest way to go to the moon. It had everything to do with the way to make it work on the rocket that could realistically be built in the 1960s. Because why build something that could only ever go to the moon? It was purpose built for that function, purely because there wasn't time to build a bigger rocket that could carry something that could all land on the moon.
My God.
There's your 1 minute random Apollo fact.
That was fantastic. And I know there are listeners who are going to be like, oh my God, she's so cool. I want more. So for those listeners, could you plug your YouTube channel so they can?
I will happily plug my YouTube channel. Yeah, my YouTube channel is called The Vintage Space. If you Google it, I should come up pretty quick. But I imagine there should be links somewhere attached to this episode. But yeah, Vintage Space, I'm currently switching formats a little bit right now, and I'm doing these deep dives into topics. So I'm just finishing up a big deep dive on Cold War aerial espionage. So looking at the U-2 plane, the Corona satellites, nothing to do with the virus, and the SR-71/A12/Oxcart, which was the successor to the U-2. So it's looking at the geopolitical climate that created a need for aerial espionage and the technology that allowed it to happen, and getting into the weeds on that. But I also have a ton. I mean, I've been doing it. It's going on 9 years that I've had the channel going. So I have a ton of videos on like how the Apollo missions worked, details about, weird space stuff that you never knew you wanted to know about. And yeah, a lot of that stuff is coming up.
So listeners, you have we're stuck inside. And if you need something to just take your time out,
content.
This is just fun education. Listen, watch. I mean, this is watch
Basically
videos and just fall in love with space and just all the science. Oh
It'll
my
be
God,
fun.
that's so much fun. Thank you for plugging that for us. My next question for you. Sorry, I just got so my brain just is still on those cool facts. While writing this book, could you tell me about the research that did you ever come across anything about these women that you were just oh wow, this is so much different than it is today? But maybe not. Maybe there's something that's deeply still connected to how either how NASA works or how just women in any field who are trying to progress and move forward. It's still directly related to what I'm seeing, reading or researching about these women.
Yeah, I think more than anything, I found a lot of parallels to what we still see, just being a woman in a male dominant field. I mean, science is very male dominant. Space is male dominant. Space history is the most male dominant of all those male dominant arenas. I mostly found a lot of interesting similarities in kind of what some of these women were up against. And one element that I loved, and it was kind of hard to get it into the narrative, but I really fought for it, was that Jackie, in addition to being the foremost pilot of the 20th century and just a standout pilot, owned a luxury cosmetics line. Oh. And I love that she did that because she got her start. She earned a ton of money as a beautician. That's how she started flying and ended up in New York in the first place. But she learned to fly because she wanted to actually launch her own cosmetics line. And she met a man at dinner one night who said, if you're going to cover enough ground to sell cosmetics in the Depression, you got to get your pilot's license. You got to get her out more. And then she fell in love with flying, but that man eventually became her husband. But she never lost that desire to be both a spectacular pilot and feminine. And I loved that she refused to compromise on those two sides of herself, because I think this is something that is very prevalent, where, if you're a woman in science, you're not supposed to care what you look like. If you're a woman who's a makeup artist on Instagram or whatever, you're probably not smart. Like,
Right.
Why can't you be both? And I don't understand why we make this division. It doesn't make any sense. And me personally, like, I love the this kind of mid-century style, #vintage style, not vintage values. And I love the femininity that's involved in that era. And I love that Jackie refused to compromise it. And I've been hunting down, as I hold up so I can show you, even though listeners can't see, one of Jackie's original compacts from her cosmetics line that still works. I have a bunch of them, but yeah, I've collected these artifacts of her cosmetics line. And I love that she used it. When she won a race, she'd like get out of the plane, like holding her lipstick, posing in the cockpit, and marketed this whole thing as like, oh, I have this little perk up stick of like those interlocking little containers, the perk up stick that fits in your purse or your flight bag, as the case may be. And it gets very into the marketing like that.
Right.
It was so interesting that she refused to compromise that, and that was not separated, that it was not seen as a negative for her, but became a negative for women. And just the way that she would approach that for some reason felt so interesting, given the modern climate of women being forced to choose, that she didn't. And I liked that. I liked that a lot. But for the most part, I mean, I just thought it was really interesting. I talked about this in the introduction, that women are so often defined by their biology. And you see it in movies a lot, that, the woman is there to be the woman. Even if she's a spy, she's also first and foremost a woman. And this idea that all of these women, some of them were mothers and they chose to be mothers first. Some of them were mothers and they chose to be pilots first. And that either way, that's okay.
Right.
And that, they had that because they fought for that freedom, even if it was fighting for it within their own lives. I think that also really resonated with me. And something that I think should resonate and does resonate with a lot of women now. So there was mostly when I was in researching this were those kind of echoes that you see.
That's so, like, when you say that, like, I feel like that too is something that, like, I'm just now, which is way too later than we should be seeing, but like seeing that struggle a lot of women had, where they were like, I was just watching, one of my favorite things that I've watched in the past year was The Queen's Gambit. And I don't know if you saw it.
Not yet.
When you do, it's amazing. But like the main character, she was like a chess prodigy, but like always criticized because she loved fashion, and she always loved looking great, and she always loved having like just this amazing style, and people were like, no, you can't have style and be taken seriously as a professional. And it's just like, no, that's not true. That's not, like, you can be both. You can be no one ever tells a man you can't love science and love I don't know, what's something really manly? I don't know.
Cigars. I was just, my mind just went to Mad Men. It's like they just drank and smoked cigars a bunch. So
right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, you men can't be alcoholics and run a business. No, they never said that. Like these, like, and that's my Mad Men. That's like how I see all these. Like they're all alcoholics, but they can run a business. But like a woman can't wear lipstick and be taken as seriously as that, in that, or not even wear it, love it, like love being like, just having their just their own style or anything else feminine and be something else. That's such a, oh, sorry, go on.
It's funny that you bring up the woman can't wear lipstick, because I actually have gotten more than one email of someone saying, I really like your work, but I would take you more seriously if you didn't wear a lipstick. And I'm like, this baffles the brain of like, why? It's not like I speak differently depending on if I'm wearing makeup or what dress I'm wearing. And it's just, and part of the reason why I want to get it in the book and why I'm very kind of outspoken of just like, I like fashion and stuff, is just like, stop telling girls who are going to grow up and do this in 20 years. Stop telling girls that they have to pick.
Right.
like, especially, there's already a huge drop off of young girls' interest in science because they're not supposed to be smarter than the boys that they have crushes on. I mean, I don't have kids, but anecdotally from my friends who are teachers or parents, that they see about that middle school age is when the drop off happens, because they start to want to date, they start to like boys, they start to get romantic interests, and that they don't want to be smarter than somebody because, and then that's where you see the shift. And it's like, stop telling girls they can either be in science or be feminine.
No,
or just say, do you love something? Cool.
yeah.
Do it.
No, the way that you said,
as long as what you love is,
just
not being awful to people.
yeah, like as
To
long
be
as you're not
clear.
causing anyone harm, go.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's so funny you say that, because like, yeah, I've gotten that too with just like someone telling me, oh, you can't go into this, like as a Black man, they're like, you can't, make sure you have a certain haircut, or you don't say certain words that are like just like too Black, you know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah.
like, it's that just like it's I
there's like the inherent biases that come in various things. And it took me, and like, I mean, I say this, it took me 30 odd years to finally just be like, okay, if you can't see past your own inherent bias, I don't need to change for that. Because for
exactly.
years, I actually, when I started writing, I was blogging, I didn't put my face anywhere because I knew that I would be taken, because like I already look young and I know that. And when I was, when I started writing 10 years ago, I looked even younger, and I was like, I'm not going to be taken seriously. So if I just don't put my face out there, maybe they'll pay attention to my words.
Right.
And as soon as I started doing YouTube stuff, then the real hate came. And it was just, it took me a long time to just be like, fuck it. I'm so sorry if I can't swear on this podcast.
Okay,
Bleep it.
All you want.
Yeah, bleep it. I'm going to dress the way I want to do because it makes me feel confident. And ultimately, when I'm confident, I feel better about the work that I'm doing, because why not? And if you can't pay attention to what I'm saying because of the lipstick that I'm wearing, that's on you. And I'm not gonna, but it took me so long to just be okay with that. And I really, I just like, my hope for the younger girls and the younger men and the younger boys is just like, if you love something and don't not do something because other people make you feel bad about it.
Right.
If you love this and you love wearing nail polish, just do it. Who cares?
Right. Like, do
Yeah.
just and that's like, I can only imagine the better world that we would have if like all of this, like we just let people like be who they are and do what they
express themselves, be authentic to themselves.
And that's something I think, like, I mean, terrible year, but the pandemic has, I feel like, let a lot of people be able to, like, because you're not in the office, you're not like, we're able to be ourselves while like being at home, and doing being on video chat has been like kind of more freeing for people to like not have that restriction of like office policy and office like dress codes and all this stuff. And we've been able, and like I hope that continues afterwards, and like we just let people, and like for like a woman like Jackie's legacy to be for young women to see her and be like, she loves all this feminine and openly feminine things, and she's the successful pilot and pioneer in all this thing. That's just amazing to see, like an icon like that. To use like, I feel like that's like very like new hip, I say that and I like age 10 years, new hip language, but like, yeah, she's an icon. She's an icon to like just.
It was the more I dug into her, the more I just, and I feel like I should say, be very upfront. Like, she also was not a perfect person. Right. Like everybody, she's not perfect. And I put this in the author's note actually, that, both of these women lie in their memoirs. Both of them inflate certain things. Both of them have their flaws. Like for all of the amazing marketing that I loved in her cosmetics line in the 30s, that was all about, it was called Wings to Beauty. This whole idea of, flying up into the air and being who you are, even if that's feminine. In the 50s, the marketing became about recapturing youth. And I've seen a lot of articles and beauty history bloggers saying like, oh, it's just an ageist. And I'm like, it was when she started lying about her own age. It reflects her own insecurity, if you know Jackie,
Right.
which I think is, so whether or not, and that also reflects the time when, in the 50s became like, it was much more about being feminine because that was your job now, says the government. So, it's more layered than that. But I put it up there that like, they're not perfect, because at the end of the day, women are also just humans.
Right.
And like, what man has not lied about something to impress somebody? Like, whether it's impressing a romantic interest, whether it's trying to one up the man in the office, men do it all the time. These women also did it. So like, as much as I think there's a lot, I'm just to be clear, because she did some shitty things too, but like, there's elements of people that you can really take inspiration from. And I think it's just important, especially, oh my God, especially right now, is you can look at somebody and say like, not everything you've done and is great, but you can still respect that you've done a lot of great things. And to be, she's not like insanely awful like some of the shit I've seen on Twitter the last few days. Oh my God, I can't stand Twitter anymore. But it's just yeah, they're human, and I tried to portray them both with their flaws and not leave the negative elements out, because that's history, that's real.
Right. Exactly. No, I'm also gonna lie in my memoir. It's gonna start off with me saying I looked like a young Denzel. Like, of course I didn't. Of course not. But like, it will be. And I will say this now: it is a lie to everyone listening, but it will be the first sentence of my memoir. And that's human.
It's human nature, and I think it's important to look at historical figures as humans. And there's still a lot of elements, even if, she maybe didn't play the whole women in space thing right. Maybe she was a little bit too harsh in it and a little too self-interested, but there are a lot of things that she did that are inspirational. And Jerry's the same way. She did a lot of things right, and she did some things very sketchily wrong.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh.
No, and that's human. That's it. That's human. And
Jerry, I feel like I say Jerry like 100% in her memoirs. She talks about this like crazy romance she had with her boss, left out the fact that he was married.
And like,
right?
You just see God. And
by the time her memoirs came out, he was dead. So who else was gonna like argue that their romance was maybe even fabricated? It's very unclear.
You know what? And like, that's human. That's honestly good storytelling. That's good storytelling. No, well, sadly, I have to wrap up. But like, do you have? I mean, this has been a fantastic conversation, and like, I'm loving this.
I've had fun.
I had so much fun. We could continue this for like another 3 hours, but we probably shouldn't. But do you have any last things you would love to say to our, any last comments about the book, or just anything that you would love to share to our listeners?
Trying to think. I feel like I should always be more prepared to have that last kind of final elevator pitch for the book. But yeah, I think what I'd like to say, kind of what I just said about this book, is really just that it's the dual biography of these two really incredible people. They're not defined by being women, even though that is kind of an overarching theme. It's not about them taking on things for the sake of femininity. It's really them pursuing what they want as people. And even if they didn't go about it the right way, I think there's a lot of inspirational elements in both of them that are so applicable today, that makes like researching them made me want to take something on and take a stand for something, because it's so amazing to read how much they did. And that's really, at the end of the day, what I kind of hope to share in this, getting history right, bringing back the memories of these two women, but also making it something that you can read and really fall into. And really, I tried to write it so it feels like you're in the story with them.
Oh my God.
And I hope if you guys pick it up, that it sucks you into the narrative and you just get lost in their lives.
Oh my God. Like, what a great elevator. Like, that's an elevator pitch. You like faked me out where you're like, I don't know. And then you just gave me the perfect one. That's, oh my God. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for just coming on the podcast and just making this such a fun time, and just like sharing your book with us. And just, if you can order, right now I can't come in, but like, you can order for pickup that book at skylitbooks.com, or you can call in and order. Any like quick, just one sentence thing you want to say to our listeners or readers in general? Doesn't have to be about the book.
In general, I feel like in general, I mean, the one thing I keep wanting to say to everybody is just take care of yourselves, stay well, and stay healthy, and yeah, dive into a good book and escape into a slightly less insane period of time for a little bit. Escape into books and take care of yourselves.
Escape into books is a perfect way to end this. So thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you to all my beautiful listeners and readers. And you all have a great and wonderful day.
Thank you for listening to the Skylight Books podcast series. Please don't forget to visit our website at skylightbooks.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more author talks and bookseller conversations. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you back in our store soon.